On June 16th, Israel announced that it had taken control of the airspace over Tehran, the capital of Iran. It issued an emergency alert telling people of the city to evacuate immediately. That same day, U.S. President Donald Trump posted on social media, urging everyone to evacuate from Tehran. After Trump's message, traffic leaving Tehran came to a complete standstill. Millions of people rushed out of the city overnight. A trip that normally takes 2 hours turned into a 7-hour nightmare. It reminded many of the scenes right before the fall of the Assad regime in Syria. Chinese people in general tend to be highly sensitive to sudden danger.
We're running for our lives right now. It's chaotic, and we're really scared. It's terrifying. Look at them, the local Iranians. They're fleeing too. Some have already left, and some are still here.
Many Chinese nationals still in Tehran speak neither Persian nor English. At this point, their Chinese passports won't help them. Their fate is now completely out of their hands. Another Chinese merchant living in Tehran recorded a video urging others to leave the city immediately. He said it was no longer safe.
There are a lot of Chinese people stuck in Iran right now. Many are staying in hotels, but they've been told they have to check out by tomorrow. Once they leave, there's no internet access. They don't speak English or Persian. So what are they going to do? Where can they go? How will they leave the country?
On June 18th, another Chinese person working in Iran said he had left even earlier, several days in advance. He and his co-workers made the decision to get out quickly. He said, "Leave now, don't wait. This time it's different. If you can get out of Tehran or even out of Iran, do it. Don't take any risks."
Think about it. Even millions of Afghan refugees are trying to leave Iran. So why should we Chinese people still stay? Iran's national TV station was bombed, and there are rumors that Israel might drop hydrogen bombs on the mountains near Tehran. What are we still doing here? My company acted very fast. A few days ago, one of my Chinese co-workers was in Bandar Abbas on business. When we saw things turning bad, he immediately bought a boat ticket and went straight to Sharjah in the UAE. As for the Chinese people near Tehran, I don't recommend trying to get all the way to Bandar Abbas. It's better to travel west by road and head towards Tabriz. That's where our trading company is located. From there, you have two good options to exit the country. One is through the western border to Turkey, and the other is by heading to Armenia.
On the morning of June 16th, just as the sun rose over Tehran, large numbers of residents were seen evacuating the city. All major roads and highways leading out of Tehran were jammed for kilometers. Video footage showed crowds packed at the Bazargan border crossing between Iran and Turkey. A long-term Chinese resident in Iran shared an update on June 17th. He said, "At least 30% of families in Tehran have already left the city and fled to other places. During the day, other than the long lines at gas stations, many areas of Tehran are completely deserted." Tehran has lost its usual bustle. At gas stations, drivers are only allowed to pump 15 liters at a time. After fueling up, many circle back to the end of the line and queue again. This has made the wait even longer. Since Israel bombed Iran's nuclear facilities on June 13th, the Iranian government has started restricting internet access. To get around the blocks, people started using VPNs. Even though many VPNs were slowed down or blocked, usage still skyrocketed more than 7 times. Foreign media reported that Elon Musk has activated Starlink to provide uncensored internet to Iranians, bypassing the government's controls. Yang also said,
For 2 nights in a row, people in Tehran took to the streets to protest. But after asking around, I found out they weren't protesting against Israel. They were actually protesting against their own government.
On June 16th, as Iranians were stuck in traffic trying to head north, some began singing and dancing inside tunnels to celebrate Israel's attack on their Islamic regime. This kind of public celebration is banned under Iran's current government. It's not just civilians fleeing. There are also reports of widespread communication breakdowns with Iran's military. According to people familiar with the situation, some military units have lost contact with their commanders. Soldiers are seen wandering aimlessly in the streets, and the whole situation is turning chaotic. On June 15th, Iran's foreign ministry suddenly softened its stance, saying it was willing to sign an agreement to give up nuclear weapons in exchange for a ceasefire. But Israel responded immediately, saying all existing nuclear sites must first be completely destroyed. Only then could any negotiations happen. One media outlet even pointed out that talks aren't possible anymore because the Iranian officials who took part in nuclear negotiations 4 days ago were all assassinated by Israeli forces. With the negotiators gone, there's no one left to talk to. The latest conflict between Israel and Iran has drawn global attention. China, which has close ties with Iran's current regime, responded nervously. Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping publicly expressed concern, but what he may truly be worried about is the impact on China's economy if Iran's oil exports are cut off. Since Israel launched a series of airstrikes on Iran on June 13th, followed by Iran's drone and missile retaliation, oil prices have been rising sharply. According to data from commodity firm Kepler, over 90% of Iran's oil currently go to China. Most of this oil is sent to small independent refineries in Shandong province, known as teapots. In 2022, in order to secure higher profits, Chinese companies began buying large amounts of Iranian oil under sanctions. Iran has very few other buyers besides China. This puts Iran in a weak position when it comes to pricing. In 2024, an official from Iran's Chamber of Commerce called the trade relationship with China a colonial trap. Because China pays for oil in yuan instead of US dollars, Iran is then forced to use that money to buy large amounts of Chinese goods, deepening its economic dependence on China. Iran exports around 1.7 million barrels of crude oil per day. If these exports are cut off, China's private refiners would for the first time in years have to buy oil at market prices. As the world's largest oil importer, China has been increasing its reserves for 3 months straight, adding over 1 million barrels a day. Associate Professor of Diplomacy Cheng Qingmo of Tamkang University in Taiwan said Iran has long relied on China to buy oil because international sanctions have restricted its trade. So this war could have a major impact on China's oil supply. He also said Russia has wanted to sell more oil to China, but Beijing prefers to diversify its sources. In the Middle East, China mainly relies on Iran. China has invested heavily in Iran, and Iran owes China a lot of money. Half of the oil Iran sends to China is to repay debt, while the other half is sold at very low prices. That's why Iran has essentially become the one Middle Eastern country that China can influence. On March 27, 2021, China and Iran signed a long-term cooperation framework called the China-Iran Comprehensive Cooperation Plan. According to the agreement, the two countries would work together in finance, infrastructure, healthcare, defense, and more. China committed to investing $400 billion in Iran over 25 years, and both sides would establish free trade zones. In return, Iran would supply China with oil at stable, low prices and allow China deeper access to its banking and telecom sectors. This deal was part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. But 4 years later, the deal has seen slow progress. While China has continued to import large amounts of Iranian oil, other key areas like infrastructure investment have lagged behind. It wasn't until 2023 that Chinese firms secured a few major contracts, including one for building Iran's largest airport. It's worth noting that on June 9th this year, Iran Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with Chinese Ambassador Cong Pei-Wu and brought up the 25-year agreement again. Su Ziyun, director of Taiwan's Institution for National Defense and Security Research, said that China has mainly used a barter system, exchanging engineering projects and goods, including military equipment, for Iranian oil. This has meant to strengthen diplomatic ties between Beijing and Tehran. But even though this relationship looks strong on the surface, war can change everything. If the Iranian regime collapses, that $400 billion deal would become worthless. Diplomacy professor Cheng Qingmo believes that the Chinese Communist Party established its so-called comprehensive partnership with Iran in 2021 to use Iran as a base for expanding influence in the Middle East. The goal was to bring the region into China's Belt and Road Initiative and turn it into a front line against the West. But so far, this entire plan appears to have failed. Cheng said that the 2021 agreement was supposed to be a major infrastructure investment plan, $400 billion over 25 years. But now, less than 4 years later, the survival of Iran's current regime is already in question. The infrastructure investments China made in Iran are now essentially lost. Similar failures have happened in other Belt and Road projects across southeast and central China. On June 17th, President Trump posted online claiming full control of Iran's airspace and said they had located Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei. He demanded Iran's unconditional surrender and warned that patience is wearing thin. Trump and Israel's goal is to wipe out Chinese and Russian influences in the Middle East. That way, the U.S. can shift its focus into the Indo-Pacific and counter threats from China. If Iran suffers a serious defeat, China's influence in the region will begin to shrink. The U.S. strategy is clear: concentrate its efforts on dealing with the Chinese Communist Party. Chung added that China has long backed Syria's Assad regime, which has already collapsed. Iran's regime is now on the edge. With China's support, Iran once helped groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis spread their power in the Middle East, but things have changed, and now it's much harder for China to expand in the region. At this point, the US is the one steering the situation in the Middle East. He also noted that while the Israel-Iran conflict was unfolding, Xi Jinping was visiting Kazakhstan. At the same time, both Russia and China have lost their geopolitical foothold in the Middle East. They will likely retreat to Central Asia, which will become the next battleground between the two. The latest clashes between Israel and Iran have captured global attention. On social media, many Iranians have shared videos showing that they welcome change in their country. In one clip, people laugh out loud as they drive past large portraits of Iranian military officers who had just been killed in airstrikes. Young Iranians have long grown resentful of the country's aging political elite, who rule over them with absolute power. Israel's military not only bombed the headquarters of Iran's army intelligence, but also took out the Ministry of Justice building. One Iranian citizen said, "The Justice Ministry was the worst, constantly cracking down on anyone who dared to speak up. They said, if you don't obey, they put you on trial. It's about time they got a taste of being judged by bombs." A video widely spread online shows Iranian citizens sitting on rooftops watching Israeli missiles hit Iranian targets. One scene captures a large fuel terminal in Tehran engulfed in flames. Another video shows Iranians watching calmly as Israeli forces carry out targeted strikes against their authoritarian leaders. One viewer commented, "Iranians know that this style of attacking leaders first won't harm ordinary people. In fact, many are probably glad to see their leaders go first." This situation is being compared to the late Qing dynasty, when the Eight-Nation Alliance marched into Beijing and many local residents helped guide them, provided ladders, brought food, and even gathered intelligence for them. Commentator Du Zheng shared a story from earlier. A man in his 60s in Wuhan once told him that if the US went to war with the Chinese Communist Party, plenty of people would help guide American troops. The man said, "I'd be one of them." In another scene from Tehran, someone stood on a pedestrian bridge holding a sign in English that read, "Israel, please target Khamenei and the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting Building." That person was never arrested, and not long after, Israeli airstrikes really did hit Iran's National Broadcasting Center. At the time, a news anchor at Iran's national broadcaster was live on air, angrily reporting on Israel's strikes. Her tone and performance were dramatic. Some compared it to North Korean or Chinese state television. But before she could finish her sentence, the station was bombed. You can hear the blast in the studio as ceiling debris fell. The anchor looked terrified, turned, and ran. The broadcast signal then went completely dark. The crew was so panicked they even forgot to turn off the microphone. Chinese democracy activist Tang Baiqiao commented, "Imagine if one day the Chinese state broadcaster CCTV was bombed while spewing propaganda, and it was broadcast live worldwide. That would be the end of the CCP, not because of the missile itself, but because after that, no one would be willing to risk their lives for the regime. Of course, maybe China won't even need to wait that long to see change." On June 17th, the Israeli military released a video showing Iran's air defense units being wiped out. That same day, US President Trump announced that the US now had full control over Iranian airspace and urged Iran's leadership to surrender unconditionally. In the first wave of strikes, Israel had already taken out 3 top Iranian military officials. Then, more than 20 high-ranking commanders were eliminated. On June 17th, Israel announced that it had killed Iran's wartime chief of staff and top military commander, Major General Ali Shadmani. He had only been in the position for 4 days. That same day, exiled Iranian Prince Reza Pahlavi delivered a message to the people of Iran. The Islamic Republic has come to its end and is collapsing. What has begun is irreversible. The future is bright, and together we will turn the page of history. Now is the time to stand up, the time to reclaim Iran. I may be with you soon. Right now, Iran is falling into disarray. Media outlets linked to Iranian opposition claim that close allies of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei have been in talks with Russia to secure an escape plan in case the situation worsens. According to these reports, it's not just Khamenei. Other top Iranian officials are also making backup plans. This has reminded some people of the situation in Beijing. Under Xi Jinping's authoritarian rule, public anger is rising, officials are miserable, and sweeping purges in the military have created fear and distrust. If Xi Jinping were to launch a war over Taiwan and the US and its allies stepped in, the Chinese communist regime would collapse just as quickly. Recently, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko visited China. He and Xi Jinping described each other as true friends and good partners. Then Xi Jinping went to Kazakhstan, where both sides referred to the relationship as a strong pillar of support. To some observers, it looks like Xi Jinping may be planning his own exit, possibly seeing Central Asia as a safe fallback.